At 9 a.m. in New York Supreme Court, surrounded by 20 lawyers, Declan smirked. You have no proof. Pregnant Elena turned to the trembling waitress. Tell him about 11:41. His smile vanished. What happened that night? Watch to the end and subscribe. The sentence carried through courtroom 412, clear enough to stop every rustle of paper. Elena Voss stood beside her attorney with one hand resting below the curve of her stomach. The baby had been active since dawn, pressing a heel against her ribs whenever her breathing became shallow. Elena kept her eyes on Justice Margaret Hall. She did not look toward the opposite table where her husband sat behind a wall of dark suits. Justice Hall lowered her reading glasses. Mrs. Voss, your attorney will make the legal argument. Elena nodded. I understand, Your Honor. The judge studied her for another second. Did you say your husband was still in New Jersey after his aircraft departed? Yes. Declan's lead attorney rose at once. That allegation has no support. Elena finally turned toward him. It has a witness. Justice Hall lifted one hand before the lawyer could continue. Then we will hear about the witness in the proper order. Sit down, Mr. Rourke. 20 attorneys occupied the first 3 rows behind Declan. Elena had counted them before the clerk called the case. 3 represented him personally. Others appeared for Voss Family Holdings, its family trust, and the companies tied to the disputed shares. Most had never spoken to her, although several had helped draft policies she enforced during 6 years as Chief Risk Officer of Voss Meridian Hotels. Now they watched her as if she had wandered into the wrong proceeding. Beside Elena stood Maya Grant, a matrimonial attorney with 1 associate and a yellow legal pad. Tessa Reed sat alone behind them in a navy dress, gripping the strap of an old leather purse. The difference in power was obvious. Justice Hall glanced across the crowded courtroom and said, for the record, the number of lawyers present changes neither the burden of proof nor the amount of time this court will give either side. Charles Rourke buttoned his jacket and approached the lectern. The issue is narrow, Your Honor. Mrs. Voss executed a postnuptial agreement 3 weeks ago. Her signature was witnessed and acknowledged by a licensed notary. In exchange for $3 million and continued use of the marital residence, she waived a future grant of non-voting shares. He placed a bound copy on the lectern. Mr. Voss was already en route to Chicago when she signed. Aircraft records confirm a departure from Teterboro at 10:57 that evening. A notary who has no personal relationship with either spouse confirms Mr. Voss was not in the room. Mrs. Voss regretted the agreement after learning the current estimate of the shares. Regret does not equal coercion. Maya rose without bringing a stack of binders. A notarized signature proves that a person signed a document. It does not prove the person was free from a threat made 10 minutes earlier. She handed the clerk a single printed email. At 6:12 the next morning, before any valuation was discussed and before either spouse filed for divorce, Mrs. Voss wrote to independent counsel. She stated that her husband threatened to deliver a false audit packet to state investigators unless she signed. She asked for immediate help rescinding the agreement. Rourke objected that the email repeated Elena's own claim. Maya agreed. It is not offered as proof that every statement is true. It establishes prompt repudiation. She did not wait for a bad financial result and invent duress afterward. Justice Hall accepted the email for that limited purpose. The judge turned toward Elena. I want the timeline, not an argument. When did your husband make the alleged threat? Elena answered. A little after 11:30. Where? A private dining room at the Meridian Air Hotel near Teterboro. When did the notary enter? About 11:45. Justice Hall checked the document. The acknowledgement is stamped 11:52. That sounds right. Rourke stood again, and the notary saw no sign of distress. Elena looked at him. The notary was in the room for 7 minutes. My husband had already told me that if I spoke, I would be arrested before my daughter was born. The judge's voice remained even. Did Mr. Voss stay while you signed? He stepped into the adjoining lounge. I could still hear him on the phone. Declan met her eyes for the first time. His face was composed, almost familiar, and that hurt more than anger would have. He wore the same silver watch he had checked repeatedly that night. Elena remembered the private room with its low amber lights and a view of aircraft moving beyond the glass. Declan had placed a folder beside her plate and said the papers only updated financial disclosures before the baby came. When she reached the waiver, she stopped. This takes away the shares, she had told him. Declan closed the folder with 2 fingers. Sign it, Elena. She refused. His answer had come quietly. Then the audit packet goes to the authorities before sunrise, with your name on every delayed report. She knew parts of that accusation could be made to look credible. She had waited 10 days before escalating the liquidity problem. Declan knew why. He also knew fear could erase context faster than any document. Rourke connected a laptop to the courtroom monitor. A flight tracking page appeared, followed by a timestamp and the tail number of Declan's Gulfstream. The aircraft climbed out of Teterboro at 10:57 and landed in Chicago shortly after midnight Central Time, he said. Next came an internal passenger sheet with Declan's name, then a still image from a video call. Declan appeared against the cream leather of an aircraft cabin. The board call began at 11:23 Eastern, Rourke continued. Mrs. Voss now asks this court to believe Mr. Voss was simultaneously aboard a jet and sitting in a hotel restaurant. Maya studied the screen. Flight tracking proves where the aircraft went. It does not prove who was inside. Rourke gave a restrained smile. That is what the manifest proves. Maya replied, a document produced by Mr. Voss's own office proves only what his office typed into it. Justice Hall looked over the top of her glasses. Both of you are moving ahead of the evidence. Mr. Rourke, an aircraft location is not a passenger identification system. Miss Grant, suspicion about a manifest is not proof that it is false. She turned a page in the witness list. You disclosed Tessa Reed within the expedited schedule. The defense received notice 4 days ago. We did, Rourke said. We will show that Ms. Reed has no reliable basis for identifying Mr. Voss. You may test that on cross-examination, the judge replied. You may not erase a witness by describing her occupation. A faint sound passed through the gallery, then stopped when Justice Hall looked up. Maya rested one hand on the counsel table. Miss Reed served the private dining room that night. She spoke directly with Mr. Voss, handled an allergy incident involving him, checked his identification, and obtained his signature on a report. Rourke's expression changed for less than a second. The restaurant uses electronic customer profiles, he said. A stored signature can populate a form without the guest being present. Then the record's custodian can explain the system, Maya answered. Ms. Reed can explain whose driver's license she held. Rourke objected that the restaurant documents had not yet been authenticated. Maya did not fight him on that point. That is correct. Today we are asking the court to preserve the disputed property and hear the witness tomorrow. We are not asking for a final finding before the foundation is complete. Justice Hall addressed Elena directly. Your original agreement grants you 5% of Voss Family Holdings when your first child is born. Is that your understanding? Yes, Your Honor. The child has not yet been born, so the interest has not vested. That is also my understanding. The judge leaned back, then explained why emergency relief is necessary. Elena glanced at Declan before answering. Because the new agreement gives him permission to move or restructure the shares before the birth. Once they are transferred among his companies, finding them will take months. My daughter is due in 8 weeks. Declan spoke before his attorney could stop him.
I would never take anything from our child. Elena faced him.
The agreement says otherwise. Justice Hall struck the desk once with her gavel. Mr. Voss, you will speak through counsel unless I ask you a question. The judge called a 20-minute recess so she could review the original prenuptial agreement and the corporate joinder papers. Elena rose slowly. Her lower back had begun to ache, and she waited until the room stopped tilting before taking a step. Maya noticed. Do you need water? She asked. I need him to stop pretending this is about regret. Maya handed her a bottle anyway. Drink. Staying upright is part of the strategy. Elena almost smiled. It was the first practical kindness she had heard all morning. Behind them, Tessa remained seated while attorneys streamed around her. Several glanced at her badge from the restaurant and then looked away. Declan caught Elena near the marble hallway outside the courtroom. 2 of his attorneys stayed several feet behind him. You can still end this, he said. His voice was low enough to sound private, although everyone nearby could see them. Take the $3 million. Keep the apartment. We can announce a respectful separation before the baby comes. Elena twisted the cap onto her water bottle. You mean before anyone values the company? His jaw shifted. You do not understand what a public fight will do to thousands of employees. I spent 6 years protecting those employees. Then protect them now. Elena held his gaze. By lying about where you were. Declan took a breath and softened his voice. By accepting that a marriage can end without destroying everything around it. For years, that tone had persuaded Elena to wait. It made each delay sound mature and every compromise sound temporary. She had once admired his ability to remain calm during a crisis. Now she understood that calm could also be used to make another person doubt the alarm ringing inside her. You had the chance to end this quietly, she said. You could have told the board the truth about the cash problem. Declan's eyes moved toward Maya. Be careful what you say in a courthouse. That warning worked once. It was not a warning. It was advice. Elena lowered her voice. Advice leaves room to say no. Declan looked past her toward Tessa. Is that really who you are trusting with our daughter's future? Tessa heard him. Color rose along her neck, but she did not look away. Elena stepped between them. Her job does not make her memory smaller. Declan gave a tired shake of his head. This is why you will lose. You think moral certainty is evidence? No, Elena replied. Evidence is evidence. Moral certainty is why I did not stay home. One of Declan's attorneys approached and reminded him the recess was ending. He walked back into the courtroom without touching Elena or saying goodbye. Tessa waited until he was gone. He looked right at me in the restaurant, she said. Today he looked through me. Her hands trembled against the leather purse. My manager says I can be suspended for discussing a guest. Mr. Rourke's office called me twice yesterday. They asked whether I had debts. Elena did not offer a promise she lacked the power to keep. They may attack your finances in court. They may say I paid you, you didn't.
I know. The judge needs to hear you say it.
Tessa swallowed. I have 2 months of rent saved. Elena's first instinct was to tell her everything would be fine. She stopped herself. Truth can cost people who have less protection. That is why men like Declan expect silence. Tessa nodded once, then let him be wrong. When court resumed, Rourke asked Justice Hall to exclude Tessa until Elena produced authenticated business records. Ma responded that eyewitness testimony did not become inadmissible because the witness worked in a restaurant. The defense has her name, her statement, and the subject of her testimony, Maya said. We are requesting a limited hearing, followed by third-party authentication. There is no surprise, Justice Hall agreed. She scheduled Tessa's testimony for 9 the next morning and ordered every party to preserve aircraft records, restaurant data, video call files, and communications concerning the signing. Preservation means preservation, the judge warned. Any deletion after this order will carry consequences separate from the merits of the marriage dispute. The court granted Elena temporary protection over the disputed 5% interest but left the freeze on several of her personal accounts until more evidence could be heard. The ruling protected the shares without freeing Elena. Declan could not move them that afternoon, yet she still had to ask Maya before paying a large medical bill. Justice Hall looked from one table to the other. A valid signature matters. So does valid consent. Wealth does not settle that question, and neither does sympathy. Evidence will. She then addressed Declan. Your counsel may challenge Miss Reed's identification tomorrow. If the aircraft records remain disputed afterward, I will consider whether further production from the operator is warranted. As the clerk called the next case, the 20 attorneys gathered around Declan. Their voices blended into a controlled whisper. He did not join them. He stood at the end of the table and watched Tessa rise from the gallery. For the first time that morning, his composure slipped. The change was small, but Elena saw it. Tessa came close and opened her purse. There's something I didn't explain in my statement, she whispered. The manager deleted the incident form from the restaurant computer. Elena glanced toward Declan. Then how do we prove it existed? Tessa took out a folded card bearing the name of the restaurant's insurance carrier. Every safety report uploads to this company the second a server submits it. My manager could erase our copy. He couldn't erase theirs. Elena was still reading the insurance card when the courthouse elevator doors opened onto the lobby. Tessa had written a claim number across the back in blue ink. Maya took the card, photographed both sides, then placed it inside a clear evidence sleeve from her trial bag. Do not call the insurer yourself, she said. We need the original record and a person who can explain where it came from. A screenshot gives Mr. Rourke room to argue that someone changed it. Tessa glanced toward the revolving doors. The report was real when I filed it. I believe you, Maya replied. Court is where belief has to be supported by a trail another person can verify. Elena recognized the lesson. She had taught it to junior auditors for years. Save the source. Record who handled it. Never improve a fact by touching it too much. The card brought Elena back to the receipt she had found 4 days earlier, folded inside the pocket of the coat she wore on the night of the signing. She had paid for nothing at the private dinner, but Tessa had slipped a guest copy beneath her coffee cup after Declan left the room. The receipt showed the date, table number, and the server named Tessa in capital letters. Elena had returned to the Millionaire hotel the next morning and asked for her. A manager claimed no employee by that name had worked the private room. Elena waited in the lobby until the lunch shift began. Tessa emerged from the service corridor carrying a tray of water glasses and stopped when Elena said, You served my husband on Thursday night. Tessa stared at Elena's stomach, then at her face. He told everyone he wasn't there. Now outside the courthouse, Maya looked at the time. The insurer closes its records desk at 5. We have less than 4 hours. Tessa said the policyholder, rather than an employee, would need to authorize release unless Maya obtained a subpoena. Who owns the restaurant? Elena asked. Tessa hesitated. North Star Room is the public name. The operator is Shaw Table Group. Elena stopped beside the security desk. She had not heard that company name in years, yet her body remembered it before her mind supplied the face. Owen Shaw had built his first restaurant with borrowed ovens and a dining room that seated 36. Elena had spent 2 years beside him before Voss Meridian forced his father's restaurant out of its downtown lease. Owen fought. Elena accepted a position inside the Voss organization, believing she could change it from within. Their relationship ended before Declan began courting her. Maya noticed Elena's silence. Do you know the owner? I used to. Can he be trusted? Elena placed one hand against the elevator wall as the baby shifted. I don't know who he is now. Tessa pressed the call button again. I do. He comes through the kitchen. He learns new employees' names. When my son had pneumonia, payroll advanced me a week without charging interest. Maya gathered her files. That answers whether he deserves a phone call. It does not answer whether he will help us. Elena looked at the insurance card. There is one way to find out. The North Star Room occupied the ground floor of the Millionaire Hotel, less than a mile from the private terminals at Teterboro. Its windows faced the runway, and its dining room had been designed for guests who wanted privacy before a flight. When Elena, Maya, and Tessa entered through the hotel lobby, Calvin Briggs was waiting beside the host stand. He managed the restaurant for Shaw Table Group and had denied Tessa's involvement when Elena first came looking for her. This time he held a white envelope. "Tessa, you are suspended pending a confidentiality review," he said. Tessa did not take it. "I answered a court subpoena." "You gave a statement before the subpoena." "I told the truth about a guest who lied under oath." Calvin lowered his voice. "You do not get to decide whose oath matters." Maya stepped forward. "Retaliating against a disclosed witness can become part of the court record." Calvin's eyes moved to the hotel cameras. "This is an employment matter. You need to leave." Elena pointed toward the white envelope. "Who told you to suspend her?" "No one." "Then why was the letter prepared before the hearing ended?" Calvin opened his mouth, but a voice behind them answered first. "That is an excellent question." Owen Shaw crossed the lobby in shirt sleeves, carrying a laptop bag and a motorcycle helmet. His dark hair was shorter than Elena remembered, with gray beginning near his temples. He looked at her for one measured second, then turned to Calvin. "Give me the letter." Calvin held it against his chest. "The hotel's privacy office demanded action. The hotel is our landlord. It does not employ my staff. Our management agreement requires compliance with guest confidentiality." Owen set the helmet on the host stand. "It does not require witness intimidation." Tessa finally took the envelope, opened it, and read the first page. "It says I accessed a false guest profile." Owen's attention sharpened. "Did you?" "No. Mr. Voss handed me his driver's license after the allergic reaction. I entered the number myself." Calvin said the electronic profile belonged to a different guest. Tessa turned on him. "You watched me call security for the medical kit. You came into the room and apologized to Mr. Voss." "I remember a man refusing treatment," Calvin replied. "I cannot confirm who he was." Owen asked Maya to show him the preservation order. He read every page without speaking, then looked at Tessa. "Until our attorney reviews this, you remain on paid status. You are not suspended." Calvin protested that hotel security had already revoked her building access. Owen handed the letter back. "Then she will be paid while they keep her outside. They can terminate our agreement. That is my problem." Calvin's face reddened. It becomes everyone's problem when 80 employees lose their jobs. Owen did not raise his voice. Employees do not become safer when management teaches them to alter the truth for a landlord. He told the host to close the private dining wing and directed staff to leave every terminal untouched. Only then did Owen face Elena. "You always did know how to walk into a business crisis. I didn't know this was yours. Would you have stayed away if you had?" Maya interrupted before Elena could answer. "Personal history can wait. We need access to the incident system, and we need it preserved by someone neutral." Owen looked at the court order again. "You think the local record was changed?" Tessa said. "I know it was there when I left Thursday night. On Friday morning, my login showed no report." Owen's focus shifted from Elena to the practical problem. "Nobody logs in again. I'll call an outside examiner and our insurance carrier. Whatever exists gets copied before Calvin or the hotel's technology department can touch it." Calvin took a step toward him. "You are giving a guest's medical information to his wife." "No," Owen replied. "I am preserving company records under a court order. A neutral custodian will deliver them through the proper legal process." Maya gave a small nod. Owen had drawn the boundary exactly where it belonged. Elena remembered him at 29, arguing with a fire inspector over a blocked exit while opening night guests waited outside. He could be stubborn enough to exhaust everyone in the room. That stubbornness had once broken them apart. Today it was keeping a record alive. They moved into a small office behind the kitchen. Owen called a digital records firm used by his restaurant group after credit card disputes. He put the call on speaker. "I need a protected copy of one location's point-of-sale data, administrator log, email archive, and incident system," he said. The examiner asked whether litigation had begun. Maya answered yes. "There is a preservation order signed this afternoon." The examiner instructed Owen to disconnect no equipment and change no passwords until a technician arrived. "People damage evidence while trying to save it," she explained. "Leave the system in place. We will make a documented copy and calculate a digital fingerprint, so later changes can be detected." Tessa looked confused. Maya translated. "They make a copy that can be checked against the original. If one character changes, the fingerprint changes with it." Owen authorized the work and requested the insurer's original report. The claims representative found the number on Tessa's card but would not discuss its contents over the phone. "I can confirm an incident file was received at 11:41 Eastern on the date provided," she said. "Release requires written authorization from the policyholder or a court subpoena." Owen asked for the form. Maya stopped him before he signed. "Have your own lawyer review it. I do not want the defense saying I guided the release." Owen studied her, then called his general counsel. Elena stayed quiet. Each careful step slowed them down, yet haste had helped Declan once already. Evidence gathered carelessly could turn a true event into an unusable accusation. While they waited, Tessa reconstructed the dinner from the beginning. Declan and Elena entered the private room at 11:14. Declan ordered black coffee and asked for the kitchen's off-menu almond cake, which staff modified because of his walnut allergy. Tessa's delivered the cake at 11:28. Within minutes, Declan complained that his lips were tingling. She brought the medical kit, checked his license, and offered to call an ambulance. He refused because he said he had a flight, Tessa recalled. Elena asked, "Did he say he had missed it?" "No. He said, 'The plane is where it needs to be.' I thought he meant it was waiting." Maya wrote down the exact sentence. "Do not add meaning to it tomorrow," she warned. "Tell the judge the words. Let the records explain what they meant." Tessa had returned with fresh coffee shortly before the notary arrived. The private door was partly open. Declan's voice carried into the service hall. "Sign it, or the audit packet reaches the authorities before sunrise," he said. Elena had answered, "You know I never approved those transfers," Declan replied. "Then you can explain that after they put your name on every news channel." Tessa stopped outside because she did not know whether to enter. "I heard Mrs. Voss say she wanted her lawyer," she continued. "He told her the lawyer would only make things worse." Elena remembered the words, but hearing them from someone else changed their weight. They no longer belonged only to a frightened memory. Maya asked Tessa why none of that appeared in her first written statement to the restaurant. "The incident form was for the allergy," Tessa said. "Calvin told me to record medical facts and leave private conversation out." Calvin, standing near the door, said, "That is standard practice." Owen asked, "When did the report disappear?" "Before the breakfast shift Friday." "Who had permission to delete it?" Calvin folded his arms. "Location managers and corporate administrators." Owen opened the administrator list on a separate management portal without entering the restaurant system. One unfamiliar account had been granted temporary access at 7:12 Friday morning. Its recovery email ended with Voss Meridian. Calm, Calvin stared at the address. "Hotel technology handles our network." Owen asked, "Did you approve that access?" "They called about a privacy complaint." "Who called?" "Someone from executive guest relations." "Name?" Calvin looked toward Elena, then away. "Martin Keene." Elena knew the name. Martin was Declan's chief of staff and the person who controlled access to the aircraft schedule. Maya wrote it down, but her expression did not change. "We have a possible connection," she said. "We do not yet have proof that Mr. Keene deleted anything." Owen pointed to the administrator log. "The outside examiner can tell us what the account did." His phone rang before anyone spoke again. Owen checked the screen and stepped into the hall. Elena could still hear parts of the conversation. "I am preserving records under a court order," he said. A pause followed. "No, I will not ask the witness to change her statement." His answer came louder the next time. "Send the notice in writing." When he returned, he carried the phone at his side. Elena asked, "Was that Declan?" "Voss Property Management. What do they want?" "They say allowing Tessa to identify a hotel guest violates the management agreement." Tessa looked stricken. "Are they closing us?" Owen answered honestly. "They issued a default notice. If they enforce it, we lose this location." Elena pulled him aside near the service entrance. "You can preserve the record and let another custodian handle the rest. You do not have to destroy your lease for me." Owen's eyes hardened. "This is not only about you, I know. It affects every employee here. That is not what I meant." He lowered his voice. "Voss Meridian took my father's restaurant because the lease gave them power, and they knew he could not afford a fight. I spent years telling myself you had no choice when you went to work for them. Then you married Declan." Elena held the edge of the stainless steel counter. "I thought I could prevent what happened to your family from happening to anyone else. Did it work?" The question landed without cruelty, which made it harder to answer. "Sometimes," she said. "Not enough." Owen looked through the kitchen window at Tessa, who was helping a young server reset trays even after being barred from the dining room. "You came to me after the damage reached you," he said.
Elena accepted the accusation. "Yes."
"And now you want me to trust your version of Declan."
"No. I want you to preserve the record so no one has to trust my version."
Owen's expression changed. Anger remained, but respect entered beside it. Elena continued, "If the records clear them, turn them over. If they expose me, do the same. I am asking for the truth without editing." The independent technician arrived just before 5 and began sealing the systems for collection. Owen's attorney approved the insurer authorization with language directing the original report to the court and both legal teams at the same time. Owen signed it. Minutes later, a confirmation appeared on Maya's phone. The carrier would deliver the file and its transmission history by secure transfer before midnight. Maya read the message twice. "Once this goes out to both sides, it cannot be pulled back," she said. Owen glanced at the default notice on his screen. Good. He signed a second document contesting Tessa's suspension and guaranteeing her pay. People tell the truth more easily when losing one paycheck will not cost them their home. The technician called them to the office as daylight faded behind the runway. She had not opened the deleted incident report, but the activity log showed that Martin Keene's temporary administrator account accessed Tessa's file at 7:14 Friday morning and removed it 2 minutes later. The insurer's system had received its copy the previous night, long before the deletion. Maya reminded everyone that the outside carrier still had to authenticate the document in court. Tonight we have a trail, she said. Tomorrow we begin proving what each step means. Tessa looked at Owen. You may lose the restaurant. He picked up the termination notice and placed it beside the court order. A lease can be replaced. A record erased at the right moment can change someone's life. Then he authorized the final forensic copy, choosing the evidence over the property Declan could take away. Tessa raised her right hand as morning light reached across the witness stand. The courtroom was full again. Declan's attorneys occupied the same 3 rows, while 2 reporters waited near the back despite the limits on matrimonial records. Justice Hall reminded everyone that testimony inside the room could be reported, but sealed financial exhibits could not be copied without permission. Tessa promised to tell the truth and sat down. Maya approached with no dramatic pause. Please state your occupation. Tessa looked toward the judge. I am a server at the North Star room. Rourke corrected her from his table. She is suspended. Justice Hall turned to him. Mr. Rourke, you will have your turn. Tessa continued. My employer placed me on paid status. The hotel barred me from the building after I agreed to testify. Maya began with the evening of the signing. Tessa described Elena and Declan entering the private room at 11:14. She explained the special dessert request, the allergy reaction, and the moment Declan handed over his driver's license. Why did you need identification? Maya asked. He refused an ambulance, so the incident form required his legal name and acknowledgement. I compared the license photograph to his face before I entered the number. Had you seen Declan Voss before that night? Only in hotel materials and business magazines. Are you identifying him from those photographs now? No. I am identifying the man whose license I held and whose reaction I handled. Maya asked Tessa to point him out. Tessa extended one finger toward the defense table. He is sitting beside Mr. Rourke. Declan kept his face still. Tessa testified that she returned with fresh coffee while the private room door stood partly open. Maya said, tell the court only what you heard. Tessa nodded.
Mr. Voss said, sign it, or the audit packet reaches the authorities before sunrise, Mrs.
Voss said she never approved the transfers. He told her she could explain herself after her name appeared on every news channel. Did you see Mrs. Voss sign? No. The notary arrived later, and I was called to another table. Did Mrs. Voss pay you for your statement? No. Did Owen Shaw promise you a promotion? No. What did you receive for coming here? Tessa looked down at her hands. A suspension letter and 2 calls asking how much debt I had. Rourke rose for cross-examination. His voice carried no open hostility. Ms. Reed, you owe more than $18,000 in medical and credit card debt, correct? About that. You are raising a son on a server's income? Yes. Mrs. Voss stands to receive $48 million if this agreement is voided. Have you discussed receiving money from her? Never. Did she offer to help with your rent? No. Rourke glanced at the judge. You expect this court to believe a wealthy woman facing financial loss never offered assistance to her most important witness. Tessa answered before Maya could object. She told me not to lie about what this could cost me. That was all. Justice Hall allowed the answer. Rourke displayed Tessa's original allergy report on the courtroom monitor. Personal medical details had been covered. Your report says nothing about coercion, threats, an audit packet, or Mrs. Voss appearing afraid. Tessa agreed. It was a food safety form. You knew how to write complete sentences. I was told to document the reaction. You also wrote that the guest left the private room before midnight. You did not write that he entered an adjoining lounge. The lounge is part of the private suite. Rourke walked closer to the stand. When Mrs. Voss found you, she told you her husband claimed to be on an airplane, didn't she? Yes. So before you gave a witness statement, you knew exactly what identification would help her. Tessa met his eyes. Knowing what she needed did not change who I served. He switched to the restaurant's customer system. The screen showed Declan's profile, his allergy note, and a stored signature. You testified that Mr. Voss signed the incident form. The system can copy the stored signature on electronic report, correct? Only after the server checks the box confirming identity. A box you checked. After I saw his license, there is no scan of that license. Restaurant policy forbids us from storing it. Rourke spread his hands. Then the court has your memory against flight tracking, a passenger manifest, and a live video from the aircraft. Tessa leaned toward the microphone. The plane may have gone to Chicago. I served the man who was supposed to be inside it. Rourke tried one final approach. You understand that a mistake here could damage Mr. Voss's marriage, company, and reputation? Tessa answered, yes. Does that responsibility frighten you? It does, yet you sound certain. Tessa paused before replying. I am certain about what I saw. I am careful about everything else. She looked toward Justice Hall. I cannot tell this court why the plane left. I cannot tell you who changed the computer. I can tell you that Declan Voss was in the private room because I checked his face against his license while he complained about the dessert. Justice Hall made a note. A witness gained credibility by admitting the limits of her knowledge, not by claiming an answer for every question. Maya used redirect to ask one question. Why are you certain about the time? Tessa replied. The allergy report locked me out of new orders until I submitted it. Table 12 complained because their drinks were late. Their receipt shows I reopened my screen at 11:43. Maya offered the Table 12 receipt, which had already been disclosed. Rourke objected because the insurer's custodian had not yet authenticated the central report. Justice Hall marked the receipt for identification but delayed a final ruling. Ms. Reed's testimony is admitted as eyewitness testimony, she said. The records supporting it will receive their proper weight after authentication. Declan's team then called Eric Nolan, the internal travel coordinator for Voss Meridian. Nolan confirmed the jet's tail number, the 10:57 departure, and the company passenger sheet listing Declan. He had not gone to the aircraft. Who gave you the passenger information? Maya asked during cross-examination. The executive office. Which person?
Martin Keene's assistant. Did the pilot confirm Mr. Voss boarded?
Our normal process does not require a second confirmation for the chief executive. Maya showed him the preservation order. Have you now requested the crew list? Voss Aviation considers crew identities confidential. Justice Hall interrupted. Confidential from the public is different from unavailable to a court. Make sure your employer understands that distinction. Rourke next played a portion of the 11:23 board call. Declan appeared inside a cream leather cabin wearing a headset. A low engine sound ran beneath his voice. 3 board members had sworn that they believed he was traveling. Rourke paused the video. Mrs. Voss asked the court to disregard what everyone saw in real time.
Maya stood. The witnesses saw a screen. They did not inspect the room around Miss
Voss. She asked that the original video file be delivered to the neutral examiner instead of a copy exported by Declan's office. Rourke agreed only after Justice Hall said she would order it. Declan leaned toward his lawyer and whispered. For the first time, Elena saw him check the clock without trying to hide it. Maya offered the activity log showing Martin Keene's temporary account entering the restaurant system. Rourke objected that access did not prove deletion, and Justice Hall agreed the connection remained incomplete. The outside examiner had preserved the system, but her full analysis would not be ready until the following morning. The insurer's records custodian was also scheduled for then. Justice Hall closed the folder. At present, I have credible testimony from Ms. Reed and substantial records supporting the aircraft's movement. Both can be true if the aircraft departed without Mr. Voss. They can also be true if Ms. Reed is mistaken. The court will not guess. Rourke stood before the judge could call recess. There is another omission, Your Honor. Mrs. Voss claims my client threatened her with a false audit packet, yet she has declined to place her own risk memorandum into evidence. Maya responded that the complete memorandum had been produced under the court's confidentiality order. Production is not the issue, Rourke said. Mrs. Voss wants to quote one threat while hiding the document that gave the threat meaning. Justice Hall looked at Maya.
Are you relying on the memorandum to establish Mr.
Voss's motive? Maya hesitated. We may. Then you cannot present only the part that helps your client. Elena knew what Maya would say before she requested a private conference. They stepped into the attorney meeting room while Justice Hall handled another matter. Maya closed the door. If we offer the memorandum, Voss Family Holdings and the audit committee receive it as evidence. Your employment agreement permits termination for delayed escalation. They can cancel your severance. Elena sat because the baby had begun pushing low against her pelvis. If we do not offer it, the judge may decide your story is incomplete. She will probably keep your accounts frozen and may give Tessa's testimony less weight. Elena looked through the glass panel at Declan's attorneys. How long can we wait? Until the afternoon session. After that, Rourke will ask the court to treat the omission as a choice. Maya's phone rang. Declan's settlement offer arrived while they were still in the room. $10 million, the Manhattan apartment, medical coverage through the birth, and a funded college account for the child. In exchange, Elena would accept the postnuptial agreement, withdraw the accusation of coercion, and state that Tessa had misunderstood a private conversation. They cannot ask me to change a witness's testimony, Elena said. The wording asks you to change your interpretation of it, Maya replied. It is designed to sound cleaner than it is, and the company gets no independent valuation. Correct. Maya placed the offer on the table. $10 million gives you safety today. Refusing could leave your accounts frozen for weeks. Owen was waiting outside with coffee for Maya and tea for Elena. The hotel had sent a second notice accelerating the restaurant default. When Elena showed him the settlement, he read every line. Take it, he said. She stared at him. You think Declan is telling the truth? No. I think you are 7 months pregnant. Your accounts are restricted, and his lawyers will spend years making you pay for each answer. Tessa would be left looking like a liar. I can protect Tessa's job. You cannot repair what they will do to her name. Owen set the paper on a windowsill. $10 million gives your daughter a stable life. Elena's voice dropped. My daughter cannot learn that safety means signing whatever the most powerful person puts in front of her. Owen moved closer. This is not a lesson for a child who has not been born. It is a decision about what your body and finances can survive. You are deciding the acceptable risk for me. I am trying to keep you from losing everything. That is what Declan said when he gave me the agreement. Owen stepped back, as if she had pushed him. Elena regretted the cruelty but not the boundary. Helping me means giving me facts and letting me choose, she said. If you need to control the answer, you are helping yourself feel less afraid. He looked toward the courtroom doors. You think I am afraid? I know you are. So am I. When the session resumed, Elena asked Maya to offer the full memorandum. Rourke looked surprised. Justice Hall called Elena for limited testimony about the document. Elena took the oath and sat where Tessa had sat. Maya asked why the report had been delayed. I found a $62 million gap between the cash shown to our board and the cash the company could actually use, Elena said. I confronted Declan privately. He told me several payments were being corrected and asked for 10 days before I notified the audit committee.
Did you agree? Yes. Was that proper?
Elena looked toward the board attorneys. No, I let loyalty interfere with my duty. The delay was my decision and I accept the consequences. Rourke approached for cross-examination.
You knew the company had serious financial problems before you signed the postnuptial agreement? Yes.
You also knew an independent valuation could damage the company? It could reveal accurate information. The damage already existed, and $48 million for you would make the problem worse. The agreement required an equity transfer. It did not require the company to pay me cash. Rourke lifted the memorandum. You violated your own reporting policy, didn't you? I delayed 10 days. That was wrong. So when Mr. Voss referred to an audit packet, he was referring to real conduct. Elena kept her voice steady. He threatened to add transfers I never approved and send the packet without the explanation you are holding. Justice Hall reviewed the memorandum in silence. It showed the missing cash, Elena's dated questions, Declan's promises to correct the reports, and her eventual notice to the audit committee. It also explained why an independent valuation frightened him. The judge admitted the document under the confidentiality order and directed the corporate parties to preserve every underlying record. Mrs. Voss has exposed information that may harm her own employment position, she said. That does not make her entire account true. It does give the court a fuller basis for evaluating motive. The temporary protection over the shares remained, but Justice Hall refused to lift the restrictions on Elena's personal accounts until the insurer and video evidence could be authenticated. Outside the courtroom, a Voss board attorney handed Elena written notice that the audit committee had placed her on administrative leave. Her severance rights were under review. Maya asked if she wanted a moment before they returned upstairs. Elena folded the notice and placed it in her bag. I delayed the truth once to protect a marriage, she said. I am not delaying it again to protect a job. Across the hall, Owen heard her. He did not offer advice. He simply moved aside and let her choose the next step. Maya's phone vibrated as the elevator began to rise. The neutral examiner had opened the original board call file and found a separate image layered behind Declan during the video. Its creation time was 9:14 that evening, almost 2 hours before the jet left Teterboro. Elena read the message twice. The video did not yet prove where Declan had been. It proved the cabin behind him had been prepared in advance. Maya looked at the floor numbers climbing above the door. Tomorrow, we ask why a man sitting on his own airplane needed a picture of it behind him. The sealed drive from Harbor Mutual Insurance rested beside the witness microphone when Justice Hall entered the courtroom. Deborah Lynn, the company's records director, had traveled from Philadelphia to authenticate it. She raised her right hand, took the oath, and stated that Harbor Mutual insured the North Star room on the night Elena signed the agreement. Maya handed her a printed incident report. Did your company receive this document from the restaurant? Deborah checked the claim number. Yes, our system received it at 11:41 and 18 seconds Eastern Time. Can a restaurant manager alter your copy after submission? No. A manager can correct a record by adding a second entry, but the original remains unchanged. Maya asked Deborah to explain the identification section. Deborah pointed to 3 fields. The server entered the guest's legal name, confirmed that government identification had been checked, and recorded that the guest declined an ambulance. The guest then signed on the restaurant tablet. Rourke stood. Your system also stores customer signatures, correct? It stores them for comparison. Could a stored signature be copied onto a new form? An administrator could attempt it locally. Our report records how the signature was entered. Maya asked, how was this one entered? Deborah looked at the technical history. By direct contact with the tablet screen at 11:39, it was not copied from the customer profile. The courtroom remained quiet while Maya displayed the signature beside Declan's driver's license signature, already admitted under seal. Does Harbor Mutual decide whether these belong to the same person? No, Deborah replied. We preserve records. We do not identify guests. Justice Hall nodded. That distinction matters. Maya continued, what else does the file preserve? Deborah answered, the restaurant location, table number, server login, device number, submission time, and every later attempt to view or change the record. Was there a later attempt? Yes. At 7:14 the next morning, an administrator account accessed the local file. 2 minutes later, the local copy was deleted. Rourke approached for cross-examination. Ms. Lynn, nothing in your record proves Mr. Voss personally touched that tablet. That is correct. Nothing proves the license belonged to the person who handed it to Ms. Reed. Correct. Your system only proves that a form was submitted. Deborah folded her hands. It proves more than that. It proves when and where the form was created, how the signature was entered, and that the original has not changed since submission. A witness must identify the person. Rourke glanced toward Tessa, a witness with $18,000 in debt. Deborah did not follow his gaze. Financial records do not become less accurate because a server owes money. Maya recalled Tessa for the limited purpose of connecting her testimony to the insurer's copy. Tessa examined the report on the screen. Is this the form you submitted? Maya asked. Yes, that is my employee number, the device I used, and the note that Mr. Voss refused an ambulance. Did you type his name before or after checking his license? After. Did anyone tell you to use Declan Voss's customer profile? No. Rourke asked whether she remembered the exact second he touched the tablet. Tessa answered, I remember handing it to him. The system remembers the second. Justice Hall looked from the witness to the report. That is why courts compare human testimony with records created during the event. Each can test the other. Tessa added one detail without being prompted. After he signed, Mr. Voss told me not to delay his coffee because his plane was already where it needed to be. Rourke objected that the statement had been covered the previous day. The judge sustained the objection and said she would consider it only once. Maya next called Nina Alvarez, the independent examiner Owen had hired. Nina explained that Owen had given her control of the restaurant system after the preservation order. She copied the data without changing the original machines and compared the copy to the one delivered to both legal teams. What did the administrator log show? Maya asked. A temporary account connected to Martin Keene's Voss Meridian email address opened Tessa Reed's incident file at 7:14 Friday morning. That account deleted the local record at 7:16. Could Tessa have used that account? The login came from a computer assigned to the executive office at Voss Meridian headquarters. Rourke objected. An email address and computer assignment do not establish who sat at the keyboard. Justice Hall agreed. Ms. Alvarez may describe the trail. She may not identify the human being without further evidence. Maya accepted the limitation. Did the deletion remove the insurer's copy? No. The restaurant and Harbor Mutual are separate systems. Nina looked toward the jury box, though no jury sat there. Deleting one copy can hide a record from local staff. It cannot reach a copy already delivered outside the network. Justice Hall wrote several lines in her notebook. Declan leaned toward Rourke and spoke behind one hand. The examiner then addressed the video call. She had received the original file from the board platform under the court's order. Was the cabin behind Mr. Voss a live camera image? Maya asked. Nina answered, no. It was a still picture placed behind him by the video software. Rourke rose. Virtual backgrounds are common. My client uses them for privacy. I agree, Nina said. A background alone does not prove location. Maya displayed the file history. When was that picture created? 9:14 that evening. Where did it come from? It was uploaded from Mr. Voss's user account and saved as Chicago flight cabin. Maya played 10 seconds of the call. Declan's outline blurred whenever he moved his head. A strip of cream leather vanished near his shoulder, then returned. The low engine sound continued without changing. Did you examine the audio? Maya asked. The engine noise was a separate sound file placed under the call recording. Rourke objected that board platforms sometimes add noise for presentations. Nina agreed that it was possible. The file was added manually at 10:51, 6 minutes before the aircraft departed. Justice Hall looked toward Declan. Mr. Voss, do not speak. I am advising you because you attempted to speak yesterday. On cross-examination, Rourke made Nina admit that a traveler could use a virtual background while sitting on the same aircraft shown in the picture. He also established that the background and engine sound did not place Declan at the restaurant. So your analysis cannot tell us where Mr. Voss was. At 11:23, he said. That is correct. It cannot prove he met Mrs. Voss. Correct. It cannot prove coercion. Correct. Nina waited until he turned away. It can prove that the video was designed to make viewers believe they were seeing and hearing a live aircraft cabin when they were not. Rourke asked to strike the final phrase as opinion. Justice Hall denied the request. The witness described the function of the files. I will decide what purpose they served. Maya connected the evidence in a short argument. Tessa placed Declan in the restaurant. The insurer fixed the time and preserved a signature entered by direct touch. The deletion came from a Voss executive computer. The board video used a prepared cabin image and added engine noise. We have reached the point where the crew matters, Maya said. The company manifest is the only remaining evidence that Mr. Voss boarded. Rourke objected that the identities of private aviation employees involved security and privacy concerns. Justice Hall looked at him for several seconds. Privacy can justify protection from public disclosure. It cannot create a private alibi that no opposing party may examine. The judge ordered Voss Aviation to provide the crew identities, operational flight log, and passenger count under seal. Rourke requested 2 weeks to respond. Maya asked for an expedited return because Elena's daughter was due soon and the disputed shares could be restructured. Justice Hall gave the operator until 1 that afternoon. "This is a narrow request," she said. "I want to know who operated the aircraft and whether any passenger was aboard. I am not opening the crew's private lives." She recessed the hearing until 3 and instructed counsel to remain available. Elena walked into the courthouse cafeteria with Maya and found Owen waiting near a window. He did not bring a settlement offer or tell her what to do. He handed Maya a folder from the restaurant examiner, then looked at Elena. "I was wrong yesterday." She removed the lid from a cup of soup. "About which part?" "Telling you to take Declan's money because I was afraid of what would happen if you refused. You called it safety. It was fear dressed up as a plan." Elena sat down carefully. "An apology does not require me to trust you again." "I know. It does not erase what happened to your restaurant." "I know that too." Owen pulled out the chair across from her but waited. Elena nodded and he sat. Maya left to take a call, giving them a few minutes alone. Owen said the Voss Property Company had scheduled a termination meeting for the following week. "Can you fight it?" Elena asked. "I can delay it. Keeping the location may cost more than opening somewhere else. You should not lose it because of me." "I am losing it because the landlord asked me to interfere with evidence and I refused." He held her gaze. "That decision belongs to me." Elena heard the correction. He was not presenting his sacrifice as a debt she had to repay. "Thank you for preserving the record," she said. Owen nodded. "Thank you for telling me when help turned into control." At 1:15, Voss Aviation produced the operational log and the names of 2 crew members. The log listed 0 passengers. The internal manifest filed by Declan's office listed 1. Maya read both documents at the cafeteria table. "These records cannot both be true," she said. Rourke asked to delay testimony until he could interview the crew. Justice Hall allowed each side 30 minutes with the witnesses before court resumed. The captain was in Chicago and the flight attendant was in New Jersey, so both agreed to testify by secure video. Captain Laura Bennett appeared on the courtroom monitor at 3:20. She wore a Navy uniform and sat in a conference room at the aviation operator's Chicago office. After taking the oath, she confirmed that she had commanded Declan's jet on the night in question. Maya asked, "How many passengers traveled from Teterboro to Chicago?" "0. A low murmur moved through the gallery. Justice Hall gave one sharp look and it stopped. "Were you expecting Mr. Voss?" "Originally, yes. His office notified us that the passenger was delayed and instructed us to reposition the aircraft without him." "Who gave that instruction?" Maya asked. "A dispatcher relayed it from Martin Keene's office." "Did Mr. Voss board before departure?" "No." "Could he have entered without your knowledge?" Captain Bennett shook her head. "The main cabin door was secured before engine start. I completed the exterior check and the flight attendant completed the cabin check. No passenger was aboard." Maya displayed the internal manifest bearing Declan's name. "Have you seen this document before today?" "No. Our operational record shows crew only." "Did you authorize anyone to list Mr. Voss as a passenger?" "No." Rourke moved close to his microphone. "Captain, you remained in the cockpit during the flight?" "Yes." "You cannot personally observe every part of the cabin while flying. That is why there was a flight attendant." "Could Mr. Voss have boarded while you performed the exterior check?" "No. The attendant was inside, and I closed the cabin door afterward." "Could there have been confusion because the aircraft was operated for a private owner?" Captain Bennett's voice stayed firm. "We may fly without passengers. We do not forget whether a passenger is present. Passenger count affects weight, safety equipment, emergency responsibility." Samuel Ortiz, the flight attendant, testified next. He confirmed that he had stocked no passenger meal, served no drinks, and kept the cabin lights low for the empty repositioning flight. "Did you see Declan Voss anywhere on the aircraft?" Maya asked. "No." "Did you prepare the cream leather cabin for a board call?" "No." "The cabin was dark after takeoff." Rourke asked whether Samuel had been in the lavatory at any point before departure. Samuel answered, "For less than a minute, after I completed the empty cabin check, and before the captain secured the door, no one entered." Justice Hall asked her own question. "Mr. Ortiz, are you certain there was no passenger?" "Completely certain, Your Honor." Elena looked at Declan. His hand had closed around a pen so tightly that his thumb had gone pale. Martin Keene sat 2 seats behind him, staring at the operational log. Rourke requested a 10-minute conference with his client. Justice Hall granted it. Declan and his 3 personal attorneys entered a side room, while the remaining corporate lawyers stayed at their tables. Through the closed door, no words were clear. When Rourke returned, his face had lost the polished patience he carried through the first 3 days. He approached the lectern without his exhibits. "Your Honor, my firm requests an adjournment to evaluate information that was not disclosed to us by our client. We will also be filing a formal application for permission to withdraw, consistent with our professional obligations." Justice Hall asked whether the request applied to Declan personally or the corporate entities. Declan Voss personally. Separate counsel represents the other parties. Declan stood. I did not authorize this. Rourke turned toward him. Sit down, Mr. Voss. You work for me. At this moment, I am still your attorney. Sit down. Justice Hall struck the gavel once. Mr. Voss, your lawyer gave you a lawful instruction. Follow it. Declan sat, but his eyes remained on Rourke. The judge granted an adjournment until replacement counsel could appear and ordered that no disputed asset, aircraft record, restaurant file, or corporate communication be altered. She made no ruling on the postnuptial agreement. She did not lift Elena's account restrictions. She issued no criminal referral that afternoon. Before leaving the bench, Justice Hall looked directly at Declan. Your aircraft went to Chicago. The sworn testimony establishes that you did not. A passenger manifest bearing your name was still submitted with your affidavit and offered to this court. Declan answered, I relied on my staff. That does not explain the video, the restaurant deletion, or your sworn statement. He started to reply, but the judge raised her hand. Do not answer without counsel. When this hearing resumes, you have an opportunity to explain how a false alibi entered my courtroom. Until I hear that explanation, I will rule on nothing. Declan said nothing. Behind him, Martin Keene quietly removed his Voss identification badge and placed it inside his briefcase. Declan was waiting outside the courtroom when Elena arrived for the resumed hearing. A new attorney stood beside him, but he stepped away from her before either lawyer could object. I will give you the entire 5%, he said. No escrow, no valuation fight. You sign a statement saying Tessa misunderstood the conversation and this ends today. Elena stopped several feet from him. Maya remained at her shoulder. You submitted a false manifest, Elena said. You built a fake video. Martin handled the travel records. The threat in the restaurant came from you. Declan lowered his voice. Think about our daughter. $48 million can be hers without another headline. Elena held his gaze. You keep offering safety in exchange for a lie. That stopped working the night I emailed Maya. Declan glanced at the courtroom doors. Tessa's a waitress with debt and a grievance. Owen is using you to settle an old score. When this becomes a criminal investigation, every mistake you made will become public. I already admitted my mistake. You admitted a delay. They will make it sound like conspiracy, Elena answered. Then I will explain it under oath. I will not purchase a clean reputation with someone else's ruined name. His new attorney, Dana Holt, approached and told him the judge was ready. Declan looked at Elena once more. When the company collapses, remember that you chose this. Elena replied, if the truth can collapse it, you never built it to stand. Justice Hall began by hearing Charles Rourke's formal motion to withdraw. Rourke stated only that continued representation had become impossible under his professional obligations. Dana confirmed that she had reviewed the record and would represent Declan going forward. The judge granted the motion, then addressed the disputed evidence. Lawyers may argue facts their clients provide when there is a good faith basis, she said. They may not continue presenting evidence after learning it is false. Mr. Rourke brought the problem to the court and followed the required procedure. The ruling cleared his firm of knowingly participating in Declan's alibi. Dana called Declan for limited testimony. He admitted that he had not boarded the aircraft, but claimed Martin created the manifest to avoid embarrassing him in front of the board. Did you tell your former attorneys that you were on the plane? Dana asked. I relied on the travel packet. Maya rose for cross-examination. Your sworn affidavit says, I boarded my aircraft at 10:45. Did Martin write that sentence? Declan paused. My staff prepared the affidavit. Did you read it before signing? Yes. Was the sentence true? No. Maya placed the restaurant report beside the affidavit. Were you at the North Star room at 11:39? I may have stopped there after missing the flight. Did you threaten Elena? I explained the consequences of her own conduct. Tessa sat behind Maya within Declan's view. He pointed toward her. That woman heard fragments through a door and turned them into a story because Owen promised to protect her. Justice Hall warned him to answer questions rather than attack a witness. Maya asked, did you tell Elena the audit packet would reach the authorities before sunrise if she refused to sign? Declan looked at Elena. I told her the audit could no longer be contained. Did you tell her she would be on every news channel? She knew the risk. That is a yes, Maya said. Dana objected, but Justice Hall overruled her. The witness may answer clearly. Declan finally said yes. Justice Hall delivered her ruling after a short recess. She found Tessa credible because her account remained within what she personally saw and heard, while independent records confirmed the time and identity. She found that Declan used a false threat and a manufactured travel alibi to obtain Elena's signature. The postnuptial agreement is void for fraud and duress, the judge said. She lifted every restriction on Elena's personal accounts, ordered Declan to pay her reasonable legal fees, and impose financial sanctions for the false affidavit. Because the shares had not yet vested and still required an independent valuation, Justice Hall placed them in escrow for 60 days. She also referred the false manifest, deleted restaurant record, and sworn affidavit to the appropriate investigators. Declan stood before the judge finished. You are giving her control of a company she will destroy. Justice Hall's eyes became almost impossibly cold, like glass above a dark Manhattan street. I am enforcing a contract your company signed, Mrs. Voss will receive non-voting shares. She will control neither daily operations nor the board. The valuation will trigger our lenders. Then your duty was to report the company's condition before it reached this courtroom. The judge struck the gavel. Power does not excuse a false statement. It increases the harm that statement can cause. Outside the courtroom, Tessa asked, "Did we win?" Maya answered before Elena could. The fraudulent agreement is gone, and Elena can use her accounts again. The shares are still locked while an independent appraiser determines their value. So Declan can keep fighting? He can challenge the valuation. He cannot move the shares or restore the agreement. Elena opened her banking application and paid the medical bill that had been waiting since the first hearing. The payment was ordinary, yet choosing it without Declan's permission mattered. Today the court believed the evidence, Elena said. Now we finish the part that protects the future. 6 weeks after the ruling, Elena carried the independent valuation into the Voss Meridian boardroom. Declan remained chief executive because the criminal case had not yet been resolved, but the board had suspended his authority over money and records. The audit confirmed the 5% interest was worth $48 million. It also confirmed the $62 million cash gap Elena had reported. Naomi Pierce, the board's independent chair, opened the meeting.
We have financing available from a new investor group, she said.
Their conditions are new leadership, corrected financial statements, and a separate purchase of Elena's shares after they vest. Declan pushed the proposal away. If you remove me, our lenders can call the debt. Naomi replied, the replacement credit agreement covers that risk. Those investors will own us. They will provide a loan to the company and purchase Elena's non-voting interest from her. Those are separate transactions. Declan turned toward Elena. You brought strangers into my mother's company. Elena placed Martin Keene's cooperation agreement on the table. You brought them in when you hid the cash shortage. I brought terms that keep employees paid. Martin sat at the far end, accompanied by his lawyer. He admitted that Declan ordered the empty flight, approved the false passenger sheet, and directed him to contact Calvin about deleting the restaurant record. Declan rose so quickly that his chair struck the wall. You weak little coward, he said to Martin. You signed every instruction. Martin answered. I did, and I will accept the sentence that comes with it. I am done accepting yours. Declan faced the board. Without me, the Voss name means nothing. Naomi closed the financing packet. Company is its employees, contracts, customers, and obligations. A surname does not replace any of them. Declan turned to Elena. Reject the investors. I can still arrange a private payment once the criminal referral is contained. Elena opened the valuation to the page listing overdue vendors and delayed hotel repairs. A private payment to me would leave these bills unpaid. The investor group purchases my shares with its own money and gives the company a separate credit line. Employees keep their jobs. Vendors get paid. You lose the ability to hide the books. Naomi asked each director for a vote. One by one, the voices answered, approve. The board removed Declan as chief executive and chair, adopted the restructuring, waived its right to buy Elena's shares first, and authorized their sale once the baby was born. Elena submitted her resignation as chief risk officer before leaving. Naomi told her the independent review had found no evidence that she approved false transfers or gained from the delayed report. You could ask the board to reconsider your employment, Naomi said. Elena shook her head. I delayed a report because I wanted my marriage to survive. The company deserves a risk officer who will not make that choice. Under her contract, the delay cost Elena her severance. She signed the resignation anyway. Accepting responsibility did not require accepting blame for Declan's crimes. 2 weeks later, Elena gave birth to a healthy daughter named Lucy. Maya visited the hospital carrying flowers and a closing statement from the corporate escrow agent.
The shares vested at 12:03 this morning, she said.
The investor purchase closed at 2. $48 million is now in your trust account, and none of it came from Voss Meridian's operating cash. Elena looked at Lucy sleeping against her arm. And the employees? The new credit line funded payroll and overdue vendors. The company stays open. Elena exhaled. Then we did it without making them pay for him. The final divorce judgment followed 3 months later. Elena received sole legal and primary physical custody. Declan funded a separate child support trust from his personal assets, and any visits after his release would occur under professional supervision. He did not contest paternity or the custody terms. The order divided the remaining marital property, settled every support obligation, and ended Declan's ability to use Elena's accounts as leverage. When Maya handed her the signed judgment, Elena asked, "Is there anything left for him to freeze?" Maya smiled. "Nothing that belongs to you." 10 months after the empty jet testimony, Declan stood before a criminal court and pleaded guilty to filing false records, tampering with evidence, and perjury. The judge asked whether anyone had forced him to accept the plea. No, Declan said. Do you admit that you signed an affidavit stating you boarded the aircraft when you knew you had remained in New Jersey? His voice dropped. Yes. Do you admit that you directed staff to create or preserve records supporting that false statement? Declan looked toward Martin, who sat with his own attorney. Yes. The judge replied. Employees following your instructions does not remove your responsibility for giving them. The court imposed a 3-year custodial sentence, ordered restitution for legal costs caused by the fraud, and barred Declan from executive management for 10 years. Martin received probation after cooperating and accepting responsibility for the manifest and deletion request. I told myself I was protecting the company, Martin said outside court. I was protecting my salary and calling it loyalty. The notary was formally cleared when hotel records confirmed he entered only after Declan moved into the adjoining lounge. Calvin was dismissed for assisting with the deletion and lying about Tessa's employment record. Tessa attended the sentencing beside Elena. Outside the courthouse, her attorney confirmed that Voss Meridian's insurer had approved a settlement for the suspension, lost income, and retaliation. My debts will be gone, Tessa said, almost laughing as she cried. I can put the rest away for my son. Elena hugged her carefully. You earned justice. You do not owe me gratitude. Tessa wiped her face. I know. That is why I can give it freely. Owen joined them after the crowd thinned. His old restaurant had closed, but he had purchased a smaller building in Brooklyn with his own money. Construction was nearly complete. 14 months after Lucy's birth, Owen's new restaurant opened on a quiet corner near Prospect Park. He named it Second Table because he believed people deserved another chance to sit down and speak honestly. Tessa served as training manager, teaching new employees how to document incidents, protect guest privacy, and report pressure from anyone above them. On opening night, she raised a glass of sparkling cider. A server notices more than a title, she told the staff. Write what happened, keep the original, tell the truth without adding what you cannot prove. Lucy clapped from Elena's lap as though the speech had been written for her. After the final guest left, Owen found Elena near the open kitchen. She was checking Lucy's diaper bag while he carried 2 dessert plates to a corner table. You are still working, Elena said. I own the place. Apparently that means I clear plates after midnight. It means you refuse to hire enough people. Tessa said the same thing. Owen set down the cake and waited until Elena sat. During the past year, he had shown up without taking over. He attended custody hearings when invited, left when Elena needed space, and never offered money to solve a decision that belonged to her. Elena had used that year to build a small corporate ethics practice. Her first clients were family businesses that wanted reporting systems their founders could not secretly override. Earlier that afternoon, she had signed her 4th contract. Owen raised his glass. To the woman who said she would never work inside another family company. Elena touched her glass to his. I said I would never depend on one family's permission again. Advising them from the outside was my choice. That sounds more accurate. Accuracy has become expensive around me. Owen smiled. Still cheaper than 20 lawyers. Owen placed a small ring box on the table but kept his hand over it. Before I open this, I need to say something. Elena looked from his hand to his face. That sounds dangerous. I do not want to protect you from your own life. I want to stand beside you while you choose it. What happens when my choice scares you? I tell you I am scared.
Then I listen, and if I say no tonight,
Owen gave a nervous smile. I go home disappointed. Tomorrow I still help assemble Lucy's bookshelf because I promised. Elena reached across the table. Open the box, Owens did. The ring was simple, with a round stone and no family crest. Elena Marlowe Voss, will you marry me? She let the question remain between them for a moment. No threat waited behind it, no deadline hid beneath the words. Yes, she said. Owen released a breath and slid the ring onto her finger. From the stroller beside them, Lucy woke and began protesting the late hour. Elena laughed. Your first lesson as my fiancé is that she controls the schedule. Owen lifted Lucy into his arms. That is a structure I can respect. Tessa switched off the dining room lights as Elena, Owen, and Lucy walked toward the door. The court cases were finished. The money had been transferred. Declan's sentence had begun, and the company continued under independent leadership. Elena had lost a marriage, a title, and a severance package. What remained belonged to her without fear attached to it. She locked the restaurant behind them, took Owen's hand, and walked home with the family she had chosen.